Hello everyone, my name is Chris, and I am an independent consultant. I specialize in applied AI, but I've got a long history and love to also work in developer tools and ecosystems. There's my email and my social contact information. Because you are in this talk, from now until the end of time, feel free to reach out and ask me a question on any topic that you choose. Just expect, for a large percentage of them for the answer to be, I don't know. But feel free to reach out. I always like to hear from folks. Okay, so a little bit about me, just so you might have some confidence that anything that I say has any credence whatsoever. I've worked on a bunch of technologies over a long career. You can tell by the suspenders, right? I'm old. One of the technologies I've worked on is Flutter. I was on the Flutter team for a number of years. It was a very happy time. I've been a product manager for a number of technologies as well, including Flutter. Most recently, I worked at a company called SourceGraph, who built an AI assistant, a coding assistant called Cody. And so got a lot of hands-on generative AI. I've been doing it since November of 2022. When OpenAI kind of flipped the table with ChatGPT, and everything's been different ever since. From an open source point of view, I worked on a number of open source projects, some even before the term open source software was invented. Most recently, Flutter AI Toolkit. Those of you in the audience, when Andrew was here, he talked about that. As well as the generative AI features for Dartpad. I built those. And most recently, I've been working, and I'll tell you all about it, on an agentic framework for Dart that runs everywhere that Dart runs. And if you want to hear more about the details of various things I work on, I have a blog, salesbrothers.com. All right. So let's start with the Flutter AI Toolkit. The AI Toolkit, this is like the second edition of this talk. Anyone at the first edition? Oh, one diehard fan. Thank you, sir. Oh, and Jesse. Thank you, Jesse. Okay, great. So that's where I first announced kind of an early access version of the AI Toolkit, and it is what you see on the screen. It is a AI chat widget that you can drop into your Flutter app and connect that to the data and the widgets in your app to build a thing, whatever it is, the thing that you want to build. Great. And it supports multi-turn chats with context, and it's supports attachments, so it does full multimedia, all of that stuff. Actually the UI was designed by a UX designer at Google, which is why it looks as good as it does. That had nothing to do with me. I just put the pixels where she told me. That's how the reason it looks like it looks. And of course, it's supported across the Flutter the platforms where Flutter is supported. Also, it has pluggable LLMs. Of course, it comes out of the box with support for Google Gemini and Vertex models, which are all Gemini models. But you can also plug in a number of custom models, and the community has built that. They plugged it into llama.cpp, Ollama. They plugged it into Gemma. They plugged it into DeepSeek. They plugged it into OpenAI and Anthropic. All of that. You can plug all of those models into the AI Toolkit and have a chat. Since then, since that early preview, we've moved to beta, and in fact, we're at 0.9, 0.1, I think, as of last week. We're getting close to a V1 version. Lots of PRs, lots of issues. Thank you, everyone, for your feedback there. There's also a landing page on the official Flutter Docs site you can check out. Also, the big news, as the Google Generative AI package was deprecated and the Firebase Vertex AI package was discontinued, which is somehow different, but whatever. As that happened, I moved the AI Toolkit to supporting Firebase AI, right? So, as you'd imagine. That means that you have a dependency on Firebase in the client, which makes a ton of sense because then no more API keys in your client code, right? Great. And in addition to that, there's all kinds of new fun features like full styling support, suggestions, welcome messages, tool calls, and then I went and built a whole standalone chat app with history that persists between sessions and chat management and all of that stuff. And let me switch. I've been talking to slides too long. Let me switch to fun demo mode. Okay. All right. So, let's start. Can you hear me when I do this? Here. How about that? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes? Yes? Great. Okay. Let's start with this one. This is an online demo of a slightly older version of the AI toolkit, but it's hosted on the web. You can get to it, plug in your Google API key, away you go. Okay? Notice it's got the suggestions. You can press one of these buttons. Hey, I'm a Star Wars fan. You know, what should I wear to Halloween? And I can have that conversation with Gemini. Notice the welcome message. Right. So this is live, Gemini. And here's what it thinks we should wear if you're a Star Wars fan. Halloween, Stormtrooper, white clothing, masking tape works. I guess that sounds like a do-it-yourself Halloween costume. I'm in. All right, cool. Now, one of the things that you can do, as I said, full support for styling. So here's dark mode, right? You can make that work. And then I'll let you guess what time of the year I built this this feature in. This is Halloween mode. Oh, notice the full styling support and the spooky picture in the back. Don't worry, the spooky picture was generated by Gemini, right? So we're good. But I really love the animation that happens there. Notice the opacity animation. All of that is just Flutter. All I did was allow you to set the background color to the widget to transparent, and then you can do whatever you want behind there, right? And notice that even the tooltips are styled, right? You can go crazy, and then you can combine them, dark mode and Halloween mode, which, seems like it goes together, right? So all of that baked in, you can do all that stuff. Great. Now, I mentioned the chat app. So let's pull up that chat app. Now I'm going to be showing off some stuff in Cursor. How many Cursor users do we have in the room? Couple? Okay. I like Cursor. You can have that. Feel free to reach out and talk to me about that if you feel like it. Here's the full AI chat. Now, as I mentioned, all of the chats are stored. So we've got authentication, right? They're stored on a per user basis. So I'll log in. And there are my chats, right? So all of these are just stored in Firebase. Of course, you can plug in the storage of your choice, right? And notice that it keeps the multimedia stuff too, and all of that, and you can just keep right on with these conversations like they never stopped, okay? And of course, you can delete them and change the name of the chat. And you can create a new one. I can say, hello, I'm giving a talk right now. Would you like to say hello? Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be virtually here with you today. That's so nice of Gemini to want to be with us today. But even more fun than that, notice the chat name on the left, which was untitled by default, automatically got set to the name, some name that's specific to whatever the user is doing. So that's a fun feature. Feel free to check out. All of it, of course, all open source. Help yourself. It's all ready for you to play with. Great. Now let me show off another new feature in the Flutter AI toolkit, the new Firebase provider. Andrew, if you were here for Andrew's talk a minute ago, he was talking all about function calls. The broader AI community calls these tool calls, so if I go back and forth, forgive me, the Gemini specifically calls them function calls. And so if I look at the code, when I create, how is that, by the way? Can you see that? Can you read that? Is that good? Okay, great. So when I create an instance of the Firebase provider, and this is a provider for the AI toolkit, it allows you to plug in whatever LLM you want. This is the one that comes out of the box, supports Gemini. Great. And so what I can do is I can give it a couple of tools. And a tool is 3 things. It's a name, it's a description, and it's a set of parameters. And neither of these has any parameters right now. And then when that happens, when the tool call happens, you get a callback. And you get past all that stuff back, and then you can implement it. So here's my implementation. And I was writing this in Portland when it was a little chilly. Let's crank this up, this temperature. Now obviously you'd go and you'd go and figure out, am I already running? That's okay, I have hot reloads. So that means that I can say, what's the time and temp? Yeah, and the temperature is 103. It sure is, absolutely. Great. So that's what tool calls look like. All of that out of the box, you can plug those in, and you can implement things like search the web in 3 lines of code. Download random content from the web in 3 lines of code, right? You can plug in all of that. Be careful what you do, right? But you can, right? All of that's available to you. Great. Okay. Now, let's crank up the heat a little bit. Andrew mentioned something called MCP. And MCP is the Model Context Protocol. How many people have worked with MCP at all? Anyone know the history? Jesse, I assume you do. The way MCP was developed was to be able to plug in a number of things into your AI agent, right? It was all about, we're building dev tools, right? We want to be able to give dev tools more information about your environment so that it can do better things, right? We want it to be able to have a list of errors so that it can fix them. Or we want to have a list of failing tests so they can fix them, right? That's the kind of information. Now, it became so popular that it kind of went crazy. And so MCP has become a way to package up tools in a way that works with any chat client. I don't know if you've seen support in Claude. Their Claude chat tool is the most used, they use the most tools. They invented the spec, MCP, and we've gotten remote access. Right, so locally it's just you run a process, you do standard I/O, okay, back and forth. But remotely we do SSE, streaming HTTP, right? It's a whole thing to talk to an MCP server, okay? So what I did is I built that in Flutter using tools. What I did was I went to I built a little wrapper around one of the, Andrew mentioned there's 2 Dart MCP and MCP Dart packages, right? And it matters which one you pick, by the way. What I did was I took that and I built a little wrapper. And what I do is I grab the set of tools from an MCP server on the internet. Now, the MCP server I happened to pick was something called Zapier. Anyone done anything with Zapier? Yeah, I hadn't either until I started doing this research, but it turns out it's pretty cool. It's kind of this universal data plugging tool that allows you to build workflows. They call them zaps, right? And so you can do things like, hey, when I get an email, kill a puppy or whatever, right? I mean, whatever you want to do when that happens, and you can build it in the tool, then that's what you do, right? One of the things that they do in Zapier is they expose their stuff as MCP servers, right? So that means you can build a Zap and connect. I mean, you can connect to anything. You can connect to Google Docs and Microsoft Docs and Google Calendar and I don't know, 1,000 different of these services where you authenticate and you get to access to your data, and then you can hook it up to your Zap and build these workflows. But then you can attach all of those to an MCP server, okay? And this is the one that's available on the internet, right? It's not local. You can get and run local MCP servers that connect to all those things too. But Zapier is just hosted and running, click a few buttons, and boom, my full calendar data is available publicly on the internet if you know the URL to use to get to it. So, you know, don't do that. The Anthropic is busy building OAuth into MCP that has uneven support. There's still some work to do to make MCP secure, but in the meantime, we can have some fun. So, here's the thing. So what I've done here is I built in Flutter AI Toolkit in the left. That's the LLM chat view. And then on the right is a list of tools that I have plugged in. Now, one of the tools I plugged in is just get current date and time, right? What day is it? What time is it, right? And that's important because the other thing I did was I plugged in things like find event, Google Calendar Find, right? And Google Calendar Find takes things like an end time and a start time for its queries. Now, out of the box, an LLM has no idea what time it is, right? An LLM is just there to statistically predict the next word after all the other words you told it about, right? That's what an LLM does. It doesn't have any idea what time it is, or what my calendar schedule looks like, or what the weather is like, or any of that, right? It's all based on the tools that you plug into it. So I plugged in a bunch of tools. And so here's what I got. I can do, oh, and notice, by the way, this is what the new suggestion UI looks like. This is a PR from a user of AI Toolkit, so it's pretty great. So I say this, what's on my schedule today? Now, it has to do two things. It has to find my schedule for today, but first it has to know what the heck today is, right? So here's all the tools I plugged in. Here's the system prompt. Hey, you're a calendar helper, blah, blah, blah. You know all the things. Here's, you know, some information about the tools you have. Please pay careful attention to those tools when you're calling into those tools. Great. So when I say what's my schedule today, the first thing it does is it makes the tool call to figure out what the heck date is. And then I give it the answer, right? I'm just calling datetime.now. And then it on its own, without returning to the user, takes that data and feeds it into the tool call for the next one. Okay? This is called multi-step tool calling, right? It's doing all of that on its own, right? It does call back into your code, but only to make the tool calls. It's not coming back to the user yet. It's not asking the user to go, I know what time it is, now what, right? And the result is whatever Zapier said it was, right? It's all this JSON data, right? Great. And then we take all that data and we bundle it up, and we get, well, the response is in a slightly nicer form on the left here. It says that I'm at the Fluttercon all day, and then I'm giving a couple of talks, and then there's drinks after the show, which sounds like a lovely way to spend the day. Okay? All right. Now, you might notice that there's a little interesting feature here. On the very bottom, it says my model is Google Gemini 2.0 Flash, which is nice. That's what we've been using. But we can change. So now notice I've got OpenAI, and I can ask the same question, and it's going to do the same thing, although of course it's going to answer in an OpenAI way as opposed to a Gemini way. And you can decide which way you like better when you're building your apps. Okay? But the way it's doing this is not by flipping in an AI provider, toolkit, a Flutter AI toolkit provider, because not all of them support tool calls. And if they did, they'd have to do so in a very specific way, right? When I showed you the tool calling stuff, I was showing you how to configure and handle tool calls for Gemini. If the OpenAI provider did that, they have a totally different way to define and handle those calls. And I got to write all that code. And if I want to flip in another one, I got to write all that code, right? If I want to pull in Anthropic or DeepSeek or pick your favorite, right? So I decided that, here's the real story. Jesse, will you raise your hand? I don't know if anyone knows Jesse. He's on the Twitters, right? He is well known to give his honest opinion on the Twitters, and we love him for it. I personally think of him as the Dark Prince of Flutter. Thank you for being here, Jesse. And I was super proud as I was building the AI toolkit, and I'm like, hey, there's this new feature, this new release of the AI toolkit, and now it supports all of these things, these providers from, that plug in the AI toolkit. And Jesse said, now I'm paraphrasing Jesse. Jesse said, dude, who cares? There's like most of the stuff in those APIs that you can't even get to through those providers. And I got all like, that's not what it's for, dude, man. It's supposed to plug in to this, GUI thing. It's not supposed to do all the things, whatever. And then I'm like, God damn it, he's right. So that's what inspired me to build a whole new thing. And that whole new thing is called Darktantic AI. Darktantic. And it's inspired by a Python version called Pydantic, right? So Darktantic is an agentic toolkit. Well, what does that mean? Remember when I was showing you those multiple tool calls? That's what makes it an agent, right? Otherwise, it's just request response. And if you don't write the code correctly, and Jesse helped me with the OpenAI version of this code just recently, if you do not write this code correctly, you will get, I don't know if you've programmed against these models, has anyone ever gotten the response, and now I'm going to do a thing, and then it doesn't do the thing? Has anyone had that happen to them? That's request response. What you want is agent mode, right? And so the Darktantic AI package provides agents that run in agent mode. And it does this across, right now, 4 model providers and 341 models at last count, that you can just plug into your app with a string, right? That string at the bottom, that's the string. So you can just plug it in at runtime if you want to, which is what I just did. And the way it works is, here's my call to create an agent. And it has all the stuff, right? Here's the system prompt. Here's the list of tools. The tools are defined in a provider independent way, right? So when it does actual call OpenAI or Gemini or OpenRouter, it does the conversion, right? It maps to the underlying calls. So you don't have to think about it. You can just write your code and the right thing happens. So here's what I'm doing. Darktantic, one of the things it provides is something called an MCP client, which takes, for the remote MCP client, a URL. This is not the URL, obviously. I've got it hidden well away from where the cameras can catch it, right? But it's the thing that I reach out and I say, hey, can you list your tools for me? And for each one of those tools, I'm going to plug it in to my agent right there. Okay? So you've got the system prompt, you've got the model, that string that you see at the bottom of the screen that you can switch to whatever you want it to be, and your list of tools. And then I'm plugging it in to the AI toolkit. And the way I do that is with something called the Dartantic provider. Just like the Firebase provider that I showed off earlier, this is the Dartantic one, which means it implements the protocol for plugging into the AI toolkit to do all the chat stuff. You just saw me do it, but with an agent from Dartantic. Okay? That's how it works. So this is where I'm releasing, right, publicly for the first time, demoing and telling the world about Dartantic. All right, and I'll say more about that. All right, now let's. One of the other things. I mean, Jesse put me on a road, dude. You don't even know. One of the other things that I wanted was to be able to write the same code wherever my Dart code ran. Was it Flutter? Was it Flutter Web? Was it Flutter Desktop? Was it Flutter Mobile? Was it a CLI? Was it a server? Anywhere Dart code ran, I wanted to run Dartantic. I wanted to write the same code and put it wherever I want it. Okay? I can't do that with Firebase AI. I love Google. I'm an ex-Googler. I work with Andrew and the team all the time. Firebase AI, I can't run in my server code apps. Or my server pod apps. Right? I want to run the same code, and I want to be able to feel free to switch the models. In general, I recommend Gemini models. Honestly, I really like them. They're much better for a number of reasons. But I want people to have the choice. Okay, so here's what I built. I built an app called Chatterang. And Chatterang is just a CLI. It's built using the exact same code I was showing you before. I create an agent, I give it a system prompt, I give it a set of tools, and then when I have user input, I tell the agent, run this user input, please, and stream it so that I can show that to the user as it's provided. Okay? So, actually, I don't want to run it here. It's a bad place to run it. Let me run it here. By the way, how many people use Warp? I love Warp too. I've been using Warp for years when it was just a better terminal. They just shipped Warp 2.0, which brings all the AI stuff into it too. It's a thing. The other day I was trying to track down one of my samples, and I just typed into the command line, find me a sample that has the star in the name, and I think it has the word client in the name, because I can never remember how to type, the recursive find at the command line, right? So it just did. It just found it, and I'm like, sold. Take my money, right? Okay, so here's Chatterang. So it says right now, it's 337 models. Sorry about that. It actually changes minute to minute, day to day. It's pretty fun. From 4 providers. And right now I'm chatting with Gemini, and I can list, here are the models, right? These are the ones that we have access to in Dartantic. And so I can say, OpenAI, GPT, right? Sorry. Great. There's 24. A bunch of GPT models directly from OpenAI, and a bunch directly routed through OpenRouter. Great. So let me talk. Hello. My name is Chris, and I'm giving a conference talk right now. Right now. And Gemini is going to say, that's great, Chris. I hope your conference talk is doing well. Gemini is so friendly. I'm such a fan, right? I can also do things like, what tools do you have? It's going to say, I can tell you the current time, the current date, the weather. I can do a location lookup, and I can surf the web. That's awesome. What's the weather at the Brooklyn Navy shipyard? Uh-oh, and I didn't spell it. Let's see. Oh, it looked up the zip code, and it gives me the, 88 feels like 93. That sounds about right. Yeah, right here in this talk. Absolutely. Great. So, now let me switch. Now, if I pull up Gemini, and the default model is Flash, and if I change it to Pro, it'll clear my history, and I'm starting a new chat. If I pull up ChatGPT, I can switch between models, but it's only, of course, OpenAI models, right? But here in Chatterang, I can go back and pick the OpenAI model, and I can switch. And now I'm talking to GPT-4o, and I can ask it questions from the conversation previously. It's the same stack of messages, right? I can switch out models, not just between a provider, but I can switch out providers, right? I was just talking to Gemini. Now I'm talking to GPT-4, and I can say my name, and it knows, right? I think I just invented the first multi-provider chat right here in front of all of you. Okay, that's what Dartantic allows. Let me show one more demo. This one, Victor, are you around? Is Victor around? Victor is down at the server pod booth. How many folks do Dart on the server? No one? Oh, you should. It's awesome. Oh, there's one. Yeah. And Victor and the server pod team are busy making it a fantastic experience, super fast, super amazing. So I've got a Dart server. Let me see if I can find it. Oh my goodness. Well, here, let me show you the source code instead. I've got a Dart backend server running locally. This is all the output you're seeing, called the StarGuide server, right? Built in Dart, uses ServerPod, okay? The generative AI piece of it is all built with Dartantic, right? And it does a couple of things. One thing it does is it provides a chat. And let me start with the Flutter client that talks to this Dart server backend. One thing it does is it starts a client, and it takes user questions. The other thing it does is to answer user questions, it has its own embeddings vector database. And it uses Dartantic to create those embeddings. Because in addition to chat, it can also do embeddings. So I can say, describe ServerPod in one sentence. And it can do that because I've already uploaded a bunch of data about ServerPod into their vector database. And so now it knows all the things about ServerPod. Hello world in ServerPod. Great. All right. Awesome. All of that was Dartantic, Flutter client, CLI, ServerPod, all the same code, all the same way to write things, no matter which provider, no matter what place you're running it. All right, let's get back to the slides. All right, now, this is why I built Dartantic. Right, GenKit provides a bunch of fabulous features from Google. Anyone know GenKit? GenKit works, has clients. It's a agentic framework, just like Dartantic is. But there's no way to call it from Dart. There's no Dart language binding, and it's only server-side. Firebase AI is the opposite, right? It's only client-side, but and it is all Dart, but you can't run it on the server. And it has some silly things like no support for embeddings, RAG, right? And obviously, you can't use it to call into the OpenAI providers or any other provider. Okay, so I built Dartantic to check all these boxes, except the one at the bottom. Dartantic is not supported by some giant corporation. It's just me and my contributors. So, but the rest of the checkboxes are green. If you care about it, go to dartantic.ai, and you'll get a whole docs website how to get to it. Great. Now, I want to wrap up with a couple of things that I've learned as an AI developer, both building toolkits to call AI, but even more important for this crowd is how I use AI as a developer. Has anyone seen the Flutter BSOD, the build screen of death? Right? The only thing that sucks about Flutter is getting it to build for macOS, iOS, Android with their wacky build systems. I get this every time I add a package, it feels like, right? Or not a package, a plugin. Every time I add a plugin, I run into trouble, right? And so I used to look at this and go, well, there's an hour or 4 of my life I'm never going to get back, right? Making this build. I don't do that anymore. What I do is I go to my AI agent of choice and say, build debug macOS app for me, please. And it will. And it will get things started, and it will find the error, and it will figure out what the error is, and then it will go patch my config files and finish the build. And this is the only thing I'm looking for. Great, it builds. Thank you, AI agent of choice. If you aren't doing this, you should. I've just saved, I don't know, at least an hour a week for each one of you if you don't do this. Probably more. All right. Some other things. By the way, how many people, Andrew asked the question, how many people are like shipping code that AI wrote for them? Yeah, okay. Some folks, great. There's this thing called vibe coding, which you should avoid. Vibe coding is this idea that you just give AI agent a prompt, and then you copy the output and you run it, and then you just copy the errors and you paste it back, and you just go back and forth until the dumb thing runs. Now, I admit, when I was younger, I did vibe coding just to experiment, and it was very tastefully done, and I needed the money. Okay? But now that I'm older and wiser, I do something I like to call describe coding, right? This is where you actually use engineers I was a PM for 20 years. No engineer has ever come to me and said, dude, I need a PRD. Never happened. Now the engineers are writing them. The engineers are like, I need a PRD so that I can give my AI agents the context they need to do the work that needs doing. Okay? That's why I call it describe coding. You want to describe what you want. You want to break it down into chunks. In the PM biz, we call them milestones, but call them whatever you want, right? And while I write a lot less code by hand these days, I write a lot more tests. And I spend a lot of time reading my tests to make sure that the behavior in my tests is actually what I want. The tests and the PRD and the milestone descriptions is how you keep the AI on track. Okay, great. I already mentioned and showed AIs can run commands. The other day I was like, I wonder when the first time I shipped, a real version of Dartantic was. I mean, I did some squatting on the name, but when did I ship the actual first version? And I knew it was in the Git history, and I have no idea what the command line arguments are for searching through Git history, so I just told the agent, would you look through Git history and figure that out for me? And it did, right? It is a wonderful, amazing tool for remembering all of these crazy tricks. I also recommend using Git early and often. right? You want to be able to be the gatekeeper of the wild and crazy things the AI might do when it generates your code. I mentioned MCP servers, a couple of ones you'll want to worry about. The Dart MCP server, which gives you all kinds of information about your running Dart project, and I'll show that off tomorrow. And DeepWiki. DeepWiki will read through your Git repo, and it will create a website and let you chat with that website. It's amazing. If you're not using DeepWiki, you should. Just the website itself, but the MCP server. Also, I highly recommend 2.5 Pro of Gemini when you get stuck. I use that as the big gun to get me out of a hole. And Andrew mentioned it, use rules. Here's my set of rules that I like to give my agent so that I get code out that I like, right? And you can choose the rules you like. So where does that leave us? Well, the future, I'm hoping I worked in close partnership with Google on Flutter AI Toolkit V1. That should be out very soon. The feature I'm most looking forward to in a V2, if Google gives the go-ahead, would be fully multimedia I/O. I want images back. I want audio back. I want to do all that cool live stuff that Andrew was showing off in his talk earlier today, right? There's a bunch of other things that people have requested as well, but that's a potential path for V2. V1, we're at 0.9 something on Darktantic. We're close to a V1. And I've got some big hopes and dreams for V2, where I can actually use a builder to get a typed agent and do all the JSON serialization and schema creation all behind the scenes. So you can just have types in Dart and run agents like they were function calls, asynchronous function calls, right? That's what I want. Some resources for you. Remember darktantic.ai. And you should do some things. You should build some cool stuff with Darktantic and the AI toolkit, and you should log feature requests and bug reports, and keep doing that. And that's my talk for today. Thank you very much for your time.